Hi, I'm Esther.
And I'm Shaun.
I write about AI news here at TechTarget.
And I edit Esther's stories.
We're here to talk to tech experts about everything AI, from open and closed models to AI agents and who's ahead in the generative AI race.
And even the elusive AGI.
We've got it covered, right, Shaun?
Yep, we've got it covered.
Hello and welcome to another Targeting AI episode from Informa TechTarget editorial. My editor, Shaun Sutner, and I are speaking to Mark Geene, Senior Vice President and General Manager of AI Products and Platform at UiPath. Before UiPath, Mark was the CEO and co-founder of Cloud Elements, a cloud API integration service that uses a one-to-many approach. Before then, he was the CEO of Channel Insight, and before that, he was at Dorado Software. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
Yeah, great to be here, Esther and Shaun. Appreciate look forward to talking.
All right. Thanks for being here. So you've been in the tech business for quite a while, and you started out at a tech-oriented school, WPI, here in my hometown of Worcester.
Yeah.
What drew you to technology in the first place, and how did your career develop?
Yeah, I mean, this was obviously quite a few years ago, but I just always enjoyed math and found out that programming was a good idea, good way to apply sort of that math, logical thinking and process. So I was a computer engineering major at Worcester Polytech Institute. And started out my career in programming, then moved into product management and development, and then really expanded into other roles when I was at IBM and Oracle for a number of years before Esther, some of the companies you mentioned that I was part of founding or building up. So, but yeah, just the logic and the structure of it is what's always intriguing.
So UiPath is considered one of the legacy RPA, robotics process automation vendors. In what way has RPA as the RPA strategy changed with the creation of Gen AI? And then what is the difference between agentic AI and RPA?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's interesting for a company that really has grown so rapidly over the past 6 years to think of it as a legacy, but RPA, and we really expanded that category, is about automating repetitive tasks, right? They're predictable and deterministic, and you can apply autonomous digital workers. In this case, those digital workers are robots that can navigate a user interface screen as effectively as a human can to essentially speed up all sorts of processes within a business, right? Claims processing, patient intake, payables processing within finance team. So RPA, though, was limited because of you had to code it, right? You had to lay out with a low-code development workflow platform, a deterministic workflow that you would follow. And so lots of work follows that pattern, and you want it to be structured and deterministic, but there's also a lot of work that needs more ad hoc and changes on the fly, right, based on information or context that's gathered, which is where agentic automation fits in, because now we can combine together deterministic steps in a process and also deal with those non-deterministic, more ad hoc, more creative steps that may also have to happen. So, one example, for example, we in RPA was very successful at establishing payables processing, for example. What do you have to do with payables processing, right? You've got a purchase order, you get a bill from a vendor, and then you might get a receipt of goods, and you have to match all those things. Did what I receive with the bill I'm getting match with the purchase order that I approved? If that all matches, a robot can do that very effectively and do that for millions and millions of invoices today. But when it doesn't match, the vendor might have not sent me the full amount of product I was expecting, or they sent me a duplicate invoice, or the invoice be wrong, or they didn't apply the proper discount. Now those are tasks that generally had to be applied by a person, right? That exception processing. But now we can apply agents, and we've got customers now who take agents and apply them to those exceptions. What was the dispute? Why did it happen? Go research then and analyze why it didn't match. Now go maybe interact with the vendor and interact with that vendor to be able to resolve that issue or investigation. So now I can extend and automate more of the workflow with agentic automation, where I'm combining these deterministic robots with these agents that can act more conceptually and ad hoc nature.
I just kind of want to follow up on Esther's question about RPA and agentic AI and the relationship. It seems like at first when agentic AI came in, I thought, wait a minute, that's what RPA is supposed to do. And then I thought, oh, wow, this is going to hurt the RPA vendors. But the analyst Esther has spoken to for her stories about this say that, no, it could even strengthen the existing RPA vendors' positions, because they have the domain knowledge of that. I mean, is that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a tailwind for automation in general, right? And we look at, RPA is one form of automation, right? It's being able to navigate the UI screen. There's API automation that we provide. That's my company, Cloud Elements, that I founded, that I sold to UiPath, that does, API automation. There's document extraction. There's all sorts of these things that can become tools used by agents. And the key and why this is such a tailwind for RPA automation is we already know how to deal with autonomous digital workers. Those are those robots, right? We run at any given month hundreds of millions of automations. These robots run on our platform autonomously, or with some human interaction when needed. Well, that's exactly what you need to deploy for agents. You need to govern the compliance, the control guardrails around those agents as well. We put that into the exact same platform that we built those digital workers, those robots on top of as well. So now you're automating, and even as my example I gave earlier, automating an even wider range of work and tasks for a business and workflows than you ever were able to do before, when you were just doing things that were structured, deterministic workflows.
Okay, thanks for that. So in April, you guys launched Agent Builder. Can you speak about that a little bit, and also why you think your CEO, Daniel Dines, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
He called that launch a second act. Is that, did he mean after traditional RPA? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you look at the first act of the company, that is traditional RPA. But I should say traditional RPA automation, right? Like I said, whether it's API, UI automation, navigating a UI, document understanding. UiPath had that full range of tasks and capabilities. Now adding agents to the same platform. That's why we call it a sort of an Act 2, right? It's an extension of what we already have. All of that governance structure, that compliance controls, everything else, we plugged agents onto that as an extension now to that, and making it available through, like, what really broke UiPath out of the pack as an automation vendor is the low-code interfaces that we provided, right? Where a non-data scientist, a non-programmer could build automations and workflows and do that effectively with our platform. And so we've done the same thing with Agent Builder, where it is targeted at low-code developers. I don't have to know Python code to do this. I don't have to be a data scientist. It gives you the full canvas to be able to give an agent the instructions that it needs, access the context from your enterprise, might be business policies for claims forms or other guidelines on how you operate, provided the tools that it needs. And so one of the things that really separates our platform apart as well, or if you think about, agents need a set of tools to work with, right? And so that could be a UI automation. So that could be a traditional RPA tool that could do that three-way match. But when it doesn't work properly in that same workflow, I can add an agent now to go do that dispute investigation, for example, or a claims processing. Like one of our major healthcare providers is dealing with denials of claims. It costs them 100 million plus in annual revenue because of denied claims. So that's where now they've had to manually do that with humans. We add into that workflow that we're already processing claims. Now we're able to deal with the denials and attack those with agents because they can research why it was denied, look at the policies, the requirements, what the doctor provided, read all those documents, and make a recommendation of what might need to be done to get that claim approved and reduce that loss of 100 million in revenue, for example. But all that's that Act 2 now that we're able to extend onto the same platform.
Thanks.
So agentic AI, as you know, all the buzz in the year 2025, and however, the agentic AI market is pretty competitive. And so what makes an RPA vendor like UiPath the best one to dominate the space? And what about RPA gives vendors like yourself a leg up?
Yeah. So, if you look at as an automation vendor, as an RPA vendor, we've always had to work with every application that a business is using, right? So whether it's, they've got SAP, Coupa, Epic in healthcare, Guidewire in the insurance industry, whatever it might be, blue screen apps, modern, apps like Salesforce or Workday, all of those we had to be able to orchestrate across. So as orchestrate work across that. So now what we do is we take those same tools, that same access across your full set of enterprise applications and put another new type of worker into that platform. That's that agent now. And what separates us is we don't look at everything has to be an agent, right? So if all you have as a platform is agents, or you don't have the ability to manage other digital workers like robots, you try to have an agent do things that may be better served by a predictable workflow. When I want to go update my SAP S4 system and make a payment to a vendor, I don't need an agent sort of doing that where it might be unpredictable or it might hallucinate. I can use a robot in that last mile of execution. So that's where we can break and decompose a process down and orchestrate it end to end. This is what we call Maestro. And we can orchestrate agents from UiPath, agents from third parties, robots, API workflows, all of those together to be able to develop a canvas for that process that's end to end, that is using the best tool for the job. Not always just saying an agent's going to do everything. And we can orchestrate people with that as well. That's why we sort of say, agents learn, robots do, and, people can act upon that as necessary as well, as the control panel against all of these digital workers, or in concert, I should say, with these digital workers.
I wonder if you can talk about that orchestration, right? Is it just because how involved is a human in that process still? Because you're talking about third-party applications. Is there a level of full autonomy? What's the level of autonomy there?
Yeah. And that's, we call that controlled agency, Esther, where you control the level of agency that you provide to those your agents or robots. And you can determine and say, I always want the output of this agent to be reviewed by a human. I can have another agent review the output of the agent. I can have a robot essentially review and validate the output is in the structure I expect and the right fields completed. And so you can evaluate and look through as the platform is running in that orchestration layer and say, I've got the human in the loop always checking for this particular process. And then you can see the data and we provide that to you and say, you know what, the people reviewing this haven't made any changes. You might want to move and remove that human review step because your agents are operating accurately and not making mistakes. And we give you that full control and data so you can control the level of agency that you provide as needed based on the particular process. But you might say, I'm never going to have the agent approve anything over $100,000 payment. I'll always send that to humans. So you can set those guardrails as well and where you want to. And that orchestration canvas, we monitor and look at how that process is running and where each step is either adding value or slowing down the process, and make recommendations with this process intelligence layer we have to be able to give the people operating and owners of the process the ability to modify it and improve it so it's more efficient, right? And be able to remove human in the loop when necessary.
Okay, so the next question is about Esther's favorite topic, the future of work. And it turns out that topic resonates with our audience as well. So, so again, Daniel Dines, your CEO, has said that agentic AI is going to change the future of work. So do you agree with that? And how does that work? How's that going to work out in the enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. And every enterprise, every process in enterprise is going to be redesigned over the next handful of years. I think that's a safe way to look at it, and especially enterprise and white collar work. And every step can be re-envisioned, and you'll have now digital workers working alongside your business, people on your team who are guiding and controlling the process. But a good example is we're working with a number of banks on their loan origination and compliance. So if you think about the compliance process, right, what do you have to do when you're issuing a loan? You got to make sure it meets federal guidelines for that type of loan, your own bank's policies and requirements for it. That is a lot of research and checking that's perfect for an agent. You can have a compliance officer essentially work side by side, or instead of hiring that next compliance officer, you can hire a digital worker to do that compliance. And so that process for compliance will now have those agents, people on the team who are experienced compliance officers, and robots all working together as the execution for, is that loan compliant and can I issue it? So, and we see that in every department of a company. Yes, right now we're at the stage where there's a lot of trial, there's a lot of proof of concepts, but the nature of business processes, and that's why we see this Maestro canvas, this agentic orchestration is so critical, because you need to orchestrate the type of workers that are in your business now, and that's those multiple types of digital workers, as well as the people, and orchestrate their activities. So you're going to people at the right time, only when needed, and letting your other workers in your workforce continue the work, meaning those digital workers.
Thank you.
What is the importance of data when discussing agentic AI in the enterprise?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical, right? I mean, your context, your enterprise data provides the context for these agents, right? For them to act accurately. Hopefully agents weren't trained on your proprietary data as a business, right? Those models, those LLMs, those foundation models weren't trained on your data. That's proprietary to your business. But you need to bring that as context for these agents to be able to understand the rules and guidelines and structure of how your company needs to operate. So accessing that data in whatever form it is, whether it's structured or unstructured, is critical foundational component for an agent to be successful. And one of the things that we excel at, and we've spent a significant amount of investment in, we're one of the market leaders in intelligent document processing. And so that's understanding documents or communications or other type of content, being able to extract the data properly out of that and very accurately. That's a tool that agents can use. So I can take not only my structured information in my Snowflake database or wherever it might be, but I can also take all this unstructured form of information and be able to give that, extract from it and give it as a tool to an agent to operate effectively.
Okay, so not to put you on the spot, but I'll put you on the spot a little bit. So the big three in RPA include Automation Anywhere and Blue Prism. So how do you distinguishes your area of RPA and agentic as opposed to
Yeah.
the other big three?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the areas, the number one area that distinguishes is our customers and partners. So we are by far the largest provider in automation, and we have the leading companies in every industry segment. And so that essentially informs our ability to provide not only just provide a platform, but provide solutions to particular problems, claims processing, patient intake, loan origination, as I mentioned before, customer service, other things like that, right? Where we can have that repeatability because of the scale of what we have. But the most important thing that differentiated and separated us from the RPA pack is our governance layer, is our audit, is our single control plane to see how every robot and now agents is operating. Is it operating accurately? Does it have the right, what permissions? Who can access it and where they can access it? Is it operating in a manner that's compliant? Compliance isn't a option for companies, right? If you're SOX compliant or HIPAA or PCI, it's an absolute mandate you have to achieve. So that level of control and compliance in our platform and centralized management is already always separated us, not only from the Blue Prisms and the Automation Anywheres, but from the Microsoft Power Automates or even the new line graphs and other things like that. That control plane for these, and many of our customers have thousands to tens of thousands of these of robots running that they can all control and manage in one place. And now you put agents into that as well. And so that's where I say is, again, it's not an optional thing, compliance and governance and control. It is mandatory for most businesses.
Okay.
What would you say are the key challenges in developing truly effective AI agents? And then are there specific industries or use cases where you see agentic AI having the most impact or the most immediate impact?
Yeah. The some of the biggest challenges with agents right now is gathering the context within your enterprise. So what we go back to making sure that you're providing it the access to the right information and really thinking about the design of a workflow from a new paradigm, right? It's not this paradigm of what's the structure of the workflow, but what is the goal of the workflow, right? And now once I define that goal effectively, I need to put constraints, and I need to define those constraints around what the agent can do as well. And I think that's one of the where companies are getting more and more confidence, especially with a platform like ours, where they can say that the agent can only read from my ERP system, but I'm not going to let it update. Any update has to have a human review component till I get confident with it that it's giving an accurate output. And so that's one key, right? Is being able to put those guardrails around the use of tools and being able to then evaluate how the agent is running. And so that's we look at you've got on the offline evaluations, your design time evaluation, and then you have your online evaluation. It's another part where, okay, I can get comfortable at design time that I'm evaluating my agent, it's running well, but now I need all the runtime data of how it actually is executing and how well it's executing. And once I have that data, and I have it, now I can give it more autonomy, right? I can give it more control with it. So I think that's what we continue to see is just this challenge of re-envisioning processes, putting enough guardrail and governance in place, whether it's always human control or human exception handling, that the agent knows when to go to and interact with that human.
Okay, so you spoke earlier. I think you mentioned hallucinations. I think you did, but we've been talking about governance and guardrails and responsible AI, I guess, development. And so, how when people, the biggest problem with generative AI, I guess, for the first couple of years was hallucinations, safety. Then agentic came in, and now people are talking about orchestration. But it seems like agents are even more difficult to control maybe than LLMs. So what's the answer to that?
Yeah. Well, LLMs by their nature are not predictable, right? They don't give you the same answer twice, and that's just the nature of how a foundation model or an LLM works. So, but what we do with that is these evaluations, right? Where a couple things, right? So being able to evaluate, did the answer that the agent gave, is it accurate and what I expected it to be? So those evaluations are part of what's in our agent builder tool in Canvas, is to be able to, like I said, both design time and run time, be able to give a data set, an expected set of answers, and see that the agent has given a predictable set, and then tune the instruct. And then with our agent builder, we actually give the developer the ability to recommendations on how to improve the accuracy of their agent. So not only do we evaluate it, but we then make recommendations on how to improve their prompt, the instructions they're giving it, maybe more guardrails around their tools so they structure the output better. Other aspects like that to be able to ensure that I'm getting that accurate response. So, and those are techniques that we really have brought out of not only how data science teams operate, but made that available, democratize that, make that available for the low code developer, the person who doesn't have that, but give them these advanced tooling on how to do those evaluations and assess the execution of my agent.
Got it. Thanks.
I wanted to ask about full autonomy, especially with RPA, the agentic AI. How long do you think it might take before we reach like that aspect of full autonomy?
Yeah, well, there's aspects right now with customers there where they give the agents full autonomy for more narrow tasks, right? Like a good example is a major financial services provider doing classification of merchant codes, identifying the merchant codes. This is something that you can really have a strong evaluation. Is it right or wrong? And that it's not making up a code, that it's applying it effectively, and you can measure the accuracy at even higher than a human can do, because for something like that, because it's grounded in a set of ground truth, which is there's only a certain number of merchant codes, and those execute, and it can evaluate those effectively. Where the variance and the right answer has a wide variety of answers, that high variance and variability, that's where you need more human oversight, right? So the tasks that start to have a high level of variability, research, summary, researching something. I could do a research analysis on agentic AI and evaluations and come out with a whole different response than you would come out with potentially, Esther, right? In terms of looking at that. And so that's where human review or oversight has to sit in place till you get confidence in how it's executing. Models are getting, the reasoning of models is getting much better, right? And so we'll continue to see that advance. The techniques for evaluating, even in using agents, right? We use LLM as a judge, for example. So you can use one model to assess the output of the other model. We can use agents to iterate over that as well to improve the accuracy. So we'll see more and more autonomy for a greater set of tasks. But the most important thing that we see is having narrowly scoped agents will give you more autonomy. So instead of trying to have one agent that does, the entire job of a salesperson, have the agent do forecasting, one role that the salesperson has, and then evaluate that effectively and break and decompose a process or a person's responsibilities into multiple agents that are supervised and governed by an overseeing agent or supervisory agent. That's a pattern that has much more opportunity for autonomy than one, big fat agent that's trying to do everything for a customer.
So much, Mark. Really insightful conversation. I wanted to, wrap up by looking into the future. Are there any upcoming UiPath innovations in the AI space that you can share with our audience? And then what's one prediction about AI that you're willing to make for the next decade?
Yeah. Okay. A couple of areas we're really excited about is, in fact, we've already announced this, but support in our orchestration platform for coded agents, in addition to our low-code agents as well. So, and third-party agents. So we support LangGraph agents, Agentforce agents, ServiceNow agents, Crew AI agents. So this open platform, as I mentioned before, being able to orchestrate digital workers, not only from UiPath, but across multiple parties. We're excited about MCP and supporting that as a tool for agents, both hosting using that as a way to communicate from LLMs to tools. And then one of the big areas that we're excited about is simulations. So, and as I talk about getting the trust in an agent to work autonomously, is being able to test it in a simulated environment where it's not working against it's not going against your real data. It's using mocks of the data, et cetera. So we're really advancing that area of evaluation, simulation of agents, and then multiple modalities of agents as well, with voice and such. So that's, I think, an area that I'm, some of the areas we're super excited about that are coming up. And then in terms of a prediction for AI, I think the obvious one in terms of what we were talking about, but is that every business process will have an agent supervising it. And I would say that's likely to occur in the next 5 years, that there'll be agents overseeing every type of business process in a company. And if you're not doing that, then you will be, your productivity of your business will be far behind what your competitors are doing. I really believe it will move that fast. And it's supervising. What I mean by that is it's supervising all the digital workers, the other agents, the automations, which could include RPA, as well as the people on the team as well, and helping them all work together in harmony more effectively.
Well, thanks so much, Mark. You were great, and we're glad to explore intersection of RPA and agentic with you. And I think our viewers and listeners can find you at UiPath. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the other major pod platforms, plus YouTube for the video portion. We really appreciate you coming on. You're, really good at expressing these foundational ideas behind your technology. We appreciate it, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
To hear the full audio podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, TuneIn, Podbean, and other popular podcast platforms.